that maybe historians skim over at times. The whole Southern system, because it depended upon slave labor, found ways to justify slave labor, found ways to ameliorate the fact that I might be a slave. And Southern writers, Southern scientists develop any myriad of causes why I need to be enslaved. The honest fact was that the Southern system of agriculture depended upon a captive labor source.
Dr. Mitchell, you know, I think that that's one of the ironies in the black experience in America, whether we talk about the slave experience or the free black experience.
Yes.
I think you've already indicated the importance of slavery to the South. Yet when we talk about the Declaration of Independence and when we celebrate the 4th of July as we're celebrating this morning,
yes,
we generally find that it will be people who will come out of the South, primarily yes, Thomas Jefferson and others, who will be held primarily responsible for the Declaration of Independence. Now, is there a contradiction with...
I think they had to work out in their own minds and in their own spirits a discussion first of man rights. And in the Declaration of Independence, the Americans correctly discussed that the King of England was exercising tyranny. He was invading the rights of human beings, that every human had certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and originally the term was property. Of course, it was decided to add pursuit of happiness because property was a limited quantity, and those who were drawing up the Declaration were the property class. They weren't advocating any socialistic system with dispersal of the property, but life, liberty, and happiness for humans. The question of slavery. Many of those Southerners and many of those who were part of the Declaration did hold slaves, as did Jefferson. There develops, in that justification for slavery, it develops the answer that, in fact, the slave, the African, is something less than human.
In other words, when we look at the preamble to the Declaration, it says that we hold these truths to be self-evident,
yes,
that all men.
That's right.
And I think what you're saying here is that black people, slaves, a third of the population at this particular time, is not considered to be in the all men category.
That's right.
And consequently, they can talk about. Let's talk about
the
that.
humanity. One of my favorite historical references is the development of theories about disease. One Southern scientist out of Louisiana said there was a disease called drapetomania that affected slaves in the spring of the year, that they didn't want to run away, but they couldn't prevent themselves. That the only way to prevent the slaves from developing drapetomania was to beat the devil out of them. Well, these kinds of theories, you certainly didn't hold to beating the devil out of other humans. The whole system of questioning the mental capacity. And I often tell my students that when you had slavery, you didn't need racism, because slavery in itself subjected me to second-class status. Slavery meant that any slave was in an inferior position to a free man. With the removal of slavery, you have racism. But much of the same qualities that are involved in racism were the qualities used to justify slavery. The inhuman nature of the black man, the inferior mental capabilities of Africans, the immoral acts of Africans. Now you simply have that translated into something different called law and order or racism or whatever. It's the same argument.
Well, Dr. Mitchell, when you look at the Declaration of Independence as penned by Thomas Jefferson, and of course I know that we can get into a whole discussion as to where Jefferson got his ideas and et cetera. But I think when you look at the Declaration of Independence and you find that not only does it declare independence for the original 13 North American colonies, but it also declares a kind of independence for personality or for humanity, as you've indicated. Now, how is it that black people were able to, in the end, gain from the Declaration of Independence? Did they gain anything from the Declaration of Independence?
It was a radically new idea at the time, because when the ideas for Declaration were evolving with Jefferson and the Philosophes and the French, you also had the idea called the divine right of kings. And democracy was a new idea. When you talk about a government of people and for people, that's a new idea. So as that idea grows and as it takes hold, you see many of those ideas later embellished by those who argue for a freedman, abolitionist. But you've really got to understand that one of the great desires of Jefferson and that group was to have a unanimous cause, to unite all of the 13 colonies in fighting the British, later to hold them united. There had to be a period when there was less unity, the period of Confederation, when it was a difficult period from 1776 to 1789. But the Americans understood that by working together, they'd accomplish more. If you get into a discussion of where the slave is and that, you're going to be disuniting, because the South isn't going to do anything that will cause their economic wherewithal. As far as the African American, if you look at the writings of Benjamin Banneker and others, I think my people have never been deceived about their own human capabilities, their own realities. You saw a strong movement towards religion. And in religion, you intercede with a stronger being, asking him to support you, but asking him to grant your oppressor the ability to understand your humanness. You pray that your oppressor becomes more human. And in his humanness, he recognized your humanness. It was a difficult period. It was an evolutionary period. But in the American Revolution, and every time that followed, African Americans were loyal to this nation. You've never seen any point in time when African Americans called for the downfall of the nation. This is Independence Day. You've never seen African Americans at the Statue of Liberty protesting. You've never seen any widespread protests by African American men not to serve in the military. The ideals of freedom that were expressed in the Declaration of Independence have always had an appreciation among the African and those of Afrocentric values. The question of chauvinism and sexism. African American males have never been as chauvinist or as sexist, I charge, because they understood discrimination, not subjecting others. So it's an ongoing process. You know, if you look at all of the ideas and philosophies in the world, the ideas of human rights and the ideas of the value of the individual are still evolving at this day and time. So it's not unusual